You're listening to Veterans for Recovery, a podcast that unpacks all things recovery within our extended military family. Join your host, retired Major John Donovan, a noted author, lecturer, and person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder, as he and his guests will break down current trending topics and research, along with all things recovery related to increasing recovery resilience and recovery capital within our veteran and service member communities. Now here's your host, Major John Donovan.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Veterans for Recovery. This is a podcast that looks at all things pertaining to our veterans, service members, and their family members who are in recovery or are seeking recovery. I'm John Donovan, a retired major of the U.S. Army, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. With me today is my guest, Dr. Michael Zhang. Today, Dr. Zhang and I will explore what recovery means and how it impacts the lives of ourselves, those around us, and the people that we're working with. Dr. Zhang, welcome to the show, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Major Donovan. I'm very happy to be here today.
Well, outstanding, and I am so excited about having you as a guest because our recovery conversations are focused usually around the issues of substance abuse disorder, alcohol use disorder. I did have one guest on here who was a self-professed adrenaline junkie, had put his life at risk many, many times doing high-risk behavior, and we unpackaged that. But I'm really, really thankful for what you bring to the recovery conversation today with your focus on digital addiction, pornography addiction, gambling addiction, because these are issues that impact our service members and our veterans on a daily basis. And so I'd like to really unpackage that with you today and explore what that means and how people can find help and services for those things. I really, really like what we would call in the military, actionable intelligence. It's not just theory, but you're going to give people practical suggestions about how to cope with these things. But before we get into all that, please tell our listeners a little bit about your background, your education, your profession.
So I'm a second generation Chinese Australian from Sydney, and that's where I was born, raised, grew up, spent most of my life as well. Though I've recently moved to the United States and I currently live in Utah, Salt Lake City specifically. I'm a trained psychologist, so I have a degree in clinical psychology. I have some other degrees as well in theoretical psychology and education, as well as a PhD in psychology. So I've done a lot of education, but I tend to think that education is only as good. Education is only as good as its application. So for me, it's all about how do we apply what we learn, and that's what I'm all about. So being a psychologist for 10 years, most of that was spent working with people who are struggling with gambling addiction, pornography addiction, gaming addiction. My main focus was gambling, though, and that really helped me to see what was missing in the space of treatment and also in the space of recovery. And being a psychologist was a wonderful experience for me, working one-on-one with people or in groups. And I loved the people so much that they inspired me to do more. One-on-one is limited in terms of, one person, 1 hour at a time. And for me, it really pushed me to say, can I do something that will be able to help so many more people? That's my value, just being able to help however I can. I didn't know it was going to end up being in the digital behavioral addiction space or in gambling specifically. But for me, I kind of followed my values and it led me to the place where I am now, where I'm a mission driven founder, and I'm focused on creating tools that will help as many people as possible overcome gambling and also pornography, gaming, and other digital behavioral addictions.
Outstanding. I love all of that and so excited to explore those topics in more depth with you. One of the things that you said, this idea of applied psychology. So, again, in military terms, actionable intelligence, right? We're not just going to talk about it in the theory, but we're actually going to see how this information, these techniques, these tactics, these procedures can improve the lives of the people that we're working with. Brilliant. I love that. So, in the interest of full disclosure, part of my interest in this is I tell people quite frequently, I was just, a breath's or a hair's distance away from developing a gambling addiction. And I was real early in my recovery from a substance use disorder, and innocently invited some friends over for a penny ante poker game. And penny ante became nickel dime quarter, and then it became $50 five, and then it became no limit. And I lost rent, and I
Mm,
had to go on bended knee to my father, who, and now I'm like 7 years in recovery,
mm,
but I had to go to him on bended knee and ask him for rent. And he gave it to me, but he looked at me with this look in his eye that I thought, I never
mm,
ever want to feel like this again. And I stopped. Now when I won't say that I won't, that I don't bet, but I put limits on it, like $1, $2.
mm,
I set a limit. When I hit that limit, I walk away. And I have never experienced those adverse consequences like I did in my early recovery. But having
mm,
said that, several of the people that were at that first penny ante poker game went on to develop severe gambling
mm,
addictions, where they eventually lost relationships, lost jobs, lost their housing. And I've seen this played out so many times in recovery from alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder, where we lift and switch the addiction. We are restless. We are still looking for that high. And we've convinced ourselves that because we're not drinking, because we're not using a drug, that this behavior is okay. So,
mm.
doctor, have you seen that? And if so, can you unpackage that a little bit for our listeners? What's going on there psychologically, and why are those two? One seems to be uh, lead into the other, and vice versa.
100%. I tell you what, the thing about gambling is that it is universal. It could affect anybody, and it could be completely devastating to their entire lives and livelihoods. And I say this because anyone who's experienced a win in gambling will start to feel a certain way about gambling. They'll start to anticipate what could happen, and they'll want to repeat the experience, understandably. When you win, you have a very powerful experience. And just take gambling out of the picture. Think anything in life. When you've won, what does that feel like? And that is something that really is the key to what is going on when it comes to those urges that are experienced before a gambling session. So when you have an urge to gamble, it's really you feeling like you want to chase that win again, and whether it's after a loss or a win, it doesn't matter, which is the funny thing. So you're wanting to chase the win and then the feelings that come out of that. And I say that's universal because everyone gets the feeling of winning. And when you add money into the picture, I think everyone also gets the feeling of winning money and how good that can make you feel. And to take it a step further, the sense of validation that you can get from it as well. Just feeling even temporarily that it's a boost to your self-esteem or your self-worth. And it's something that I've seen it. What was so interesting to me is seeing it across every demographic you could imagine. So there are certain maybe generalities about, certain people are more likely to gamble than other people, but the reality is that gambling could affect anybody as long as you have money, and everyone doesn't matter how much of it you have, as long as you have that desire to win. And if that combination happens and it creates those urges, and those urges and it's hard for those urges to go away unless you gamble, then you've fallen into a trap. And I think this is definitely a psychological trap, because no matter what, win or lose, as I mentioned before, you still believe that you could win the next time. So it's a very interesting a push that it has on you, because no matter what happens, you have the motivation to keep gambling. And you also have, on top of that, a variety of justifications that you can add into that to convince yourself that even though you know you've lost hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, or even more than that, even though you may know all of these things, you still feel like it is worthwhile for you, for any number of reasons, to gamble now. And that's the trap that I'm trying to help people to overcome. And it's not easily overcome. It doesn't happen overnight. Those early gambling experiences, they become very memorable and powerful, and subsequent experiences become almost fuel, for the motivation to keep gambling. So for me, it's about how can we get to the bottom of why someone keeps gambling, and how can we provide the sort of recovery support that you can come out of that, even though it's so hard. It is just so hard. And I've seen it with hundreds of clients that I've worked with. And I know that for everyone who struggles with gambling, even if they don't think it may be an addiction, that it's hard to overcome. It feels like you have no choice but to gamble. And it's so devastating as well.
Well, thank you for that wonderful explanation. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of parallels in that, chasing that high. And with somebody who's suffering from substance use disorder, living with alcohol use disorder, we talking about trying to get back to that original high, that one high where everything was free and innocent and I had no consequences. And if I could just get back to that space, in spite of the fact that I've had 3 DWIs, my wife has told me that if I do this again, she's going to leave me. My boss has told me that I've got 1 strike left. And I've got all this evidence to the contrary, but I am chasing that original high where I had no consequences. And it sounds like somebody who's going through a gambling addiction has much the same behavior. I want to jump into a report that I saw in 60 Minutes not too long ago. And it said the biggest rising addiction, and I was waiting to hear fentanyl. I was waiting to hear heroin. I was waiting to hear cocaine. The biggest rising addiction between white males ages 18 to 33 was a gambling addiction. And I thought, oh, of course, with the proliferation of online gambling, and now I can do it from my cell phone 24/7. What has your work, your job, what have you seen in terms of that? Have you seen this proliferation? Have you seen this explosion of gambling addiction?
Absolutely, especially towards the end of my time in clinical practice. I started seeing a lot more clients who were engaging in sports betting and on the apps, and then you realize something's really shifting here. Technology has enabled and exacerbated something that could really be problematic for so many people, especially young men. And that's exactly the population that I saw this in. And since 2018 in the United States, after the Supreme Court overturned the federal ban on sports betting, it has certainly gotten to a whole other level out of control, some would say as well. I mean, if you want to quantify just gambling losses, looking at it globally, we're talking over 500 billion, so half a trillion, and and by the way, that and the U.S. definitely comprises a good amount of those losses, but that's not even including other forms of, we could say, gambling that aren't technically gambling. So if you look at different forms of trading or now emerging prediction markets, I mean, there's very clear forecasts we could be looking at, a trillion dollars industry in just a couple of years from now, which is insane if you think about it. But also, I would say there's a broken system, and the broken system is unfortunately taking advantage of a lot of people. I say broken system. A lot of people who are in the system will say that's not the case, that it's the system, it's the industry, it's how the world works. And I also agree with that. But I say broken because if this system can get people to continue to gamble repeatedly to their own detriment, and not provide solutions that will help them legitimately come out of these problems and out of the addiction or out of the disorder, which is technically the diagnosis. I mean, if the same system doesn't provide what's needed, then I think it's broken. It's not really helping people. It's harming people more so. And for me, it's about, the system works this way. How can I do something to help the people who are in need, who are struggling so much? There's so many of them all over the world. And we look at existing solutions that are already available. We talked earlier about, actionable insights and intelligence. So let's think about what's available right now to people. We have helplines that you could call that will direct you to certain resources that may be available in your area. They may also be. There's also a digital version of this now. It's called eVive, which does that on the level of an app. So we have blocking software as well that's available. So people can subscribe to software that limits your ability to visit certain websites or certain apps. You've got self-exclusion, which is offered by a lot of the jurisdictions that regulate gambling. That you can put your name forward and say, I don't let me into these venues. I don't want to gamble anymore. You've got gambling counseling and also financial counseling, and that's offered whether it's on a local level, or there's definitely programs available now as well online, telehealth. So for Birch's Health and Kindbridge, they're two that come to mind in that regard. And financial counseling, GamFin is another one of those services that's offered. Then you also have residential treatment centers. So what you would call more of the rehabilitation facilities for gambling, such as Algemus, and there are others out there as well. So you have a lot of these solutions that are available. And I come back to, it's a broken system, because how much I credit all the solutions that are available. They're making a difference in the lives of people who come to them. But then you look at the system and you say, hold on, for me to even quantify a gambling for you is hard to do, because that number just keeps going up and up. So if I give you a number now, that's going to get higher tomorrow and higher the next day. And so it doesn't even make sense for me to be quantifying gambling at all, because it just keeps getting higher and higher, and it keeps getting worse and worse for the people who are experiencing the harm. And then you have to ask as well, why aren't there solutions inside of that system that really will help as many people as possible, that really can help get to the bottom of this? And people who are struggling, whose lives have been completely ruined by gambling, really helping them get out. You don't see folks within that system, say, let me give you a hug. Let me give you real support. Let me really help you through this because I know that how much you need it. This is not how the system works. And for me, it's about providing solutions that are almost outside of that system, that people can have access to guided recovery support at all times, just like they can have access to gambling at all times, which I think is definitely part of the problem as well.
Well, very insightful. And one of the things that you mentioned that I thought was kind of interesting, so that landmark ruling of the Supreme Court that struck down uh, uh, the gambling prohibition, if you will, and allowed sports betting nationwide. That happened in 2018, and then one happened in 2019, but COVID. And so we sequestered everybody in their homes with nothing to do, but we had access to online gambling. I know in Minnesota, it was questioned whether or not we should shut down liquor stores during COVID. And the answer was no, because people will go into withdrawal if they don't have access to this. And so it was the perfect storm, right? The ruling in 2018 and COVID in 2019, and you got the recipe for an explosion. I really enjoyed that we talked about the problem, we identified what the problem looked like, and then you moved into solution, because we have to have solution. But I also am cognizant of the time, and I want you to talk to us real briefly about pornographic addiction, other digital forms of addiction. What are the similarities? What are the disparities? And then ultimately to move into solution phase about those and other forms of addiction.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to any of the digital behavioral addictions nowadays, there's definitely a lot of similarities. I come back to the feeling of winning, right? That's something that will be. You applied it earlier to alcohol and substance, and then we could also apply that to all of the other addictions too, which really does drive the motivation for people to keep going, even though it makes full sense to stop or to reduce it. But it's just so hard to come out of the traps, out of those cycles, because you have again all these voices kind of in your head just convincing you, hey, just one more time, it makes sense to keep going. You deserve this, right? There's definitely a lot going on in kind of the mental space and also in the emotional space of folks who are struggling across all these addictions. So the way that I'm the co-founder of Incumental, which is a recovery support app. We call it almost like a recovery companion for folks who can have access to guided recovery sessions that are on demand, and that will basically walk through the two aspects of the recovery journey. The first one being dealing with those urges, breaking those urges that come up in the moment. I saw this a lot in counseling, where I have my clients saying, therapy is fantastic, counseling is fantastic. The problem that we have is applying what we gain from that setting into the real world when we need it, when we have those urges, and you're not in the same mode, and you don't have access to the same resources, and the resources are really quite limited in that regard. So that's what motivated me to create something that can be available at all times, and that can really contribute to breaking those urges when needed, and over the long term, contribute to recovery, a recovery journey that will help them look at the different areas of their gambling, or of their pornography, or of their gaming behaviors, whether that might be personal, whether that might be emotional or relational or mental or behavioral or even commercial. So looking at it from different angles and being able to personalize the solutions for everyone and kind of meet them where they are. I think that's what's really needed at this moment, because we have a lot of the solutions I mentioned earlier are kind of this one size fits all. And I think that what we need now is more personalized solutions that really are able to cater to what someone needs, and helping them meet unmet needs as well, across the psychological experience that they're having related to their gambling or to their pornography or to their gaming or social media or other behaviors. So what really inspires me, I'll take it back to gambling as well, is I've seen it up close and personal in the worst ways, and I've also seen it up close and personal in the best ways, where I've met and worked with many people who have overcome gambling and who have overcome pornography and overcome gaming, and when I see them achieve this, it just makes it all worthwhile, because I realize when I have clients who on average are losing over $100,000 in their lifetime on gambling, and then they stop gambling and then they end up buying a house or starting a business, it just makes me realize that it is possible. It's very hard, as I mentioned earlier, but it's very possible as well to overcome these addictions and to kind of set yourself up, with your life after gambling or after pornography or after gaming or any of the other addictions as well. And it's hard because you may feel like you've kind of been wired and kind of trained in a certain way through your experience, but you can always rewire and retrain into another experience, into that recovery journey that I think is so important to so many people right now across all of these addictions that are unfortunately affecting so many people in the world.
I love that, and so much to unpackage there. And unfortunately, we're almost at the end of the show, but I do want you to tell us again the organization that you founded here, Incumental, and how can people find that?
So right now we have our guided recovery support for gambling available. You can go to incumental.com, incumental.com, and you can download the app there, and it will be available to you just like gambling is available to you at all times. Recovery can be available to you at all times as well now with Incumental, and we have a variety of other tools in the app as well that support that process. Not only being able to break those urges, but also supporting the long-term recovery journey that so many people need now, unfortunately, because of how the world has gone. So visit the website, and then in the future, you'll see other versions of Incumental become available for pornography, gaming, and the other digital behavioral addictions that we've mentioned today as well.
Outstanding. And then I just want to mention to our listeners, there's also a couple of programs that are available to you if any of the subject matter today has touched you or sounds like you. Gamblers Anonymous, GA, uses a 12-step approach to address a gambling addiction. SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, is also a 12-step approach for addressing a sexual addiction or pornography addiction. Dr. Zhang, this has been an incredible program. Thank you so much. Any final comments you would like to leave with our listeners?
Most of my clients, they never wanted to go to therapy. They wanted to work things out themselves, and it was so hard to just open up about their struggles. And I want to say to folks who are listening, I know how hard it is. If you're struggling with gambling or any of the other addictions, I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to open up. And but I also know that you can find the solutions that you need. And my whole purpose has been to be able to help however I can. And I want you to know that you are capable, that you are enough, and that you are worthy, even if you don't feel that way. And you are special.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Powerful message. Dr. Zhang, thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us today. It was a fascinating conversation. To our listeners, thank you for spending a little time with us to learn more about Veterans for Recovery. This has been a podcast of the Coming Home Well Network. Until next time, be well, think well, and do well. This is Major John Donovan signing off.
You've been listening to Veterans for Recovery, a Coming Home Well podcast. We value your feedback. Please be sure to leave a review, share, and download this episode. We thank our veterans and service members for your service to our country. We thank our friends and families for their support. And thank you for listening to Veterans for Recovery.